It's been a while since I've done one of these videos where I just talk about maybe a topic that's came up or news that's happened this week, and we just have a discussion, whether we talk about it in the comments or whatever. But there's been some news that's came out this week that's piqued my interest. Started out earlier this week, we got rumors that Diablo 3 was going to be announced for the Switch, and then just today, well, when I put this video out, it'll be tomorrow, so just yesterday, the announcement was actually made. The announcement was made that Diablo 3 is coming to the Nintendo Switch, including all the DLC, all that good stuff. And I mean, that's great news for Nintendo. But then later in the day, Blizzard went ahead and said, look, Overwatch is feasible for the Nintendo Switch. Now, I've been saying in my podcasts and in streams that I think Overwatch is possible. When you look at the game, it's not that graphically intense on any console or PC. I mean, it really wasn't. Now, I thought that it could come to the Switch in 30 frames or whatever. Very possible. Now, Blizzard says, yes, it's feasible. Now, StarCraft isn't coming, and that makes sense, right? I mean, StarCraft is just a big game. But then I was thinking, what games could come from Blizzard as far as the MOBA aspects? Heroes of the Storm, I mean, Hearthstone, I mean, that's just a card game. I mean, there are tons of MOBAs that they have that this is possible. So it had me thinking that there's just been this narrative from the beginning of the Nintendo Switch all the way up till now, where it's been the Switch can't handle these games. It's not possible. Developers don't want to take the extra time to develop or scramble and scrap and all these things for the Nintendo Switch, right? There has been that narrative since the Switch came out. It was going to be only first-party games and maybe indie games here, and that was it. That was what people expected from Nintendo with the Switch. But now we're a year and a half, a year and a little bit more ahead, and we're getting more and more announcements. Doom Eternal was announced day and date for Nintendo Switch. Yes, it's going to run in 30. That's not the point. I know a lot of people say, well, it's not in 60 frames and it's not in 4K or whatever. That's not the point. The point is, day and date, that game is coming out for the Switch in 30 frames. That's the point. The point was, people were saying that this wasn't possible for Nintendo. This wasn't going to happen for Nintendo. I mean, at the beginning of my channel, when I started to do Nintendo news, I was just coming out with news like small studios. Arc was coming to the Switch. And I was doing like Capcom, Square Enix, like these companies that you kind of expected to work for the Switch, but people will kind of just shrug their shoulders at and brush it to the side. Like, yeah, it's Capcom, yeah, it's Square Enix, of course. But people were looking at, okay, can we get EA? Can we get Blizzard? Can we get all these bigger publishers to partner with the Switch? And we started to slowly see that. We started to slowly see this game announced, this game announced, this game announced. I mean, really, at E3, the big kicker that I feel like really kicked it off was Fortnite. Epic Games bringing Fortnite to the Switch. That one was huge. And yes, once again, it's in 30 frames and the draw time's not great. I mean, you play the game on the Switch compared to the Xbox, and clearly the Xbox and or PC or PlayStation 4 is the superior version, clearly, and I prefer those versions. But regardless, the option to play it on the Switch on the go is there. What I think people underestimated from the beginning was Nintendo fans and their devotion to Nintendo. I think everybody underestimated that. I think the trend in the narrative went from early 2000s, 2007-ish, 2009-ish, I guess, around there. It was all about the games. What games do you have? And then kind of after that, with the Xbox One, the narrative went from games to power. What's the most power? How many frames can we get? What's the performance that we can get? And so I believe that narrative, drove Nintendo to have not very much popularity in the beginning of its cycle, in the Switch cycle at least. I really believe the gaming community and the gaming media underestimated Nintendo fans. There's this narrative that's going around, at least in the Xbox community, because I came from there and I have friends in the community, that there's this belief that Nintendo is a secondary console. Like, you have your Xbox, and the Nintendo is a complementary console. Like we play Nintendo Switch whenever we can't play our Xbox or we're going on the go or whatever. But there's this belief that's going on that Nintendo is a secondary console. Like, you pick it up whenever you don't have anything to do or you can't play your Xbox, or your wife picks it up or whatever. There's just this weird narrative, and I've never really agreed with it. But I think with that narrative, people underestimated the Nintendo community. People underestimated what Nintendo fans do. Nintendo fans are very loyal. Nintendo fans buy almost everything on Nintendo. I mean, we're talking all their IPs, everything. They almost prefer to play everything on Nintendo, no matter what the power is. I think that was underestimated in the beginning. I think these companies are starting to see the numbers of consoles being sold. I think they're starting to see the numbers of games being bought. When the MPD came out and they saw like all the first party games that were being purchased, and yes, they're first party games, but I mean, these companies do pay attention to these numbers. It's crazy how many copies of Mario Kart Deluxe 8 were sold. When you do the math, it's almost just as many as consoles were sold. That is ridiculous. I mean, and you can go down the list. I'm not gonna go down the list, but when you see the software numbers about how fans buy the games on Nintendo, and then you start to see the third-party numbers on how fans from Nintendo buy their games, you know that these companies are seeing that, and they see the dollar signs. And let's not think that doesn't matter. I know people are gonna say Nintendo's a secondary console, whatever. That doesn't matter to these companies, bro. It really doesn't. It really doesn't matter to them. Like, it really doesn't. Money matters to them, and when they see the install base and they see the numbers, and they see the loyalty of these fans on Nintendo, that they're not going to buy it somewhere else. They're going to want that money. It's that simple. And so I think that's why we're starting to see a year to 2 years later, these companies stepping up. And you know what? We need to thank Bethesda for this, because Bethesda was the first people to have the foresight to bring Skyrims and the Wolfensteins and the Dooms to the Switch. Like, they were the first company to do that. So, I mean, honestly, Bethesda took the leap. People saw the success of Bethesda, and now people are slowly starting to jump on this bandwagon and slowly getting games out. And I mean, and yes, they're kind of older games, but they're putting games out. And I'm pretty sure in the future we're going to start seeing day-and-date games for the Switch. Doom Eternal's 1. I'm pretty sure we're going to start seeing them. You can doubt me all you want, and I'm done trying to doubt Nintendo and say, oh yeah, you know what, I agree with the narrative that Nintendo Switch is less powerful and these games that come out later, it's going to be ports and all this stuff. I'm done with that. Panic button, and these companies have proven that, yo, the narrative is not real there. It's not. Everybody needs to pay attention, and these companies are paying attention. And I just thought that was interesting with this news. And I was watching my buddy Salty's Gaming's podcast, and they talked about it, and everybody in the chat was just barking and hating on the Nintendo. But it's like, bro, you can't deny it. So I just wanted to get you guys' thoughts on that. Really, honestly, just real quick. And I know this is going to be a longer video. I rambled along, but to me, I really wanted to talk about this, and we should discuss this in the comments. And heck, we're probably going to end up discussing it in the podcast on Sunday, but let me know what you think in the comments. I just think that Nintendo's on the up, and at this point, really the only people who can stop Nintendo is Nintendo. And I feel like they're at a point in their company, they're at a point to where they realize they have to start doing things differently. And I feel like there's a whole new animal in Nintendo right now. Like, things are changed. I feel a paradigm shift coming, if not already here. So let me know what you think in the comments. Nicktendo Direct here. What we do on this channel is Nintendo news, Nintendo discussions, anime reviews. I had some things in the work coming in the future, new logo, all that good stuff, remarketing everything. So bear with me with the anime reviews and things like that. Tune into the podcast on Sunday, 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central. It's going to be a great time. Once again, thank you guys for stopping by. Nicktendo Direct. I'll see you guys later.